Rob, welcome to the Outworker.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you
I,
inviting me.
of course, I mean, you're an incredible businessman, civic leader. You're very inspirational, and in my eyes, you're an outworker through and through. So I knew I needed to get a fellow outworker on the show.
Thank you.
Um, I mean, we're both very proud Holy Cross alums. So take me back to sort of your days on the hill and what you got up to on there.
Wow. 79 to 83. They were four great years. It was a great time in my life, and I met, a great group of guys and gals, and developed, strong, close bonds that are still, probably one of the most important, group of people in my life to this day. I think the thing about Holy Cross, which I, you know, have come to learn, since the graduation, is that the type of individuals that go there are people that work hard, that have a value system, that always look for a way to give back and be part of a community. And it's just a great student body. I was back last November for the Hall of Fame inductee dinner, where two of my good friends. One was a lacrosse player that was came the year I graduated. I helped recruit him, and the other was my college graduate buddy Chris Brown, who got inducted to the Hall of Fame. It was just great to be back there and see all the guys and meet some of the new younger guys that were there and meet the coaches. So yeah, it's a special place.
What was your experience like, obviously being an athlete and being on the lacrosse team up there?
So again, it was the at the time the school was really building the lacrosse program, so I kind of started on the ground level. They brought in a significant coach the fall of my sophomore year, a UMass assistant coach, played at UMass. They were one of the top 10 NCAA teams at the time, and then they also put some money in for some assistant coaches. So we started recruiting, and we had a couple successful years. My junior and senior year, my senior year I was elected captain, and we had, I think to this day, still the best record that the school has ever had in lacrosse. We also play. I played with a guy named Dr. George Paletta, who now is the head team physician for the St. Louis Cardinals, an orthopedic surgeon. He was a year behind me, and he's was a first team All American, and also inducted into the Holy Cross Hall of Fame. We had a great group of guys. We had lots of travel, great trips, great memories. We'd always go someplace for spring training to get out of the cold and get down south. Florida one year, Virginia another year, and those were special times where you bonded as a team, took care of each other. Just traveling on the road, you develop, you get to really know somebody, and you develop these bonds that when we see each other, it's like nothing's changed, even though some of these guys, there might be 10 years go by and we don't see or communicate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, you had, hearing your dad talk, hearing my dad talk about you, very high energy guy, great athlete, great personality, everyone knew you on campus.
yeah.
Getting sort of into your post grad,
hmm
and especially, you know, immediately after post
hmm
graduation, I know that you went through a very challenging time.
hmm
Can you take me back to sort of those final days of college leading up into, the hours and day of your
Sure.
accident?
Sure. So yeah, so it was May of '83, and just finished a successful lacrosse season. I was in probably the best shape of my life. I, had, as I said, I had a great group of friends that supported and loved me, and great community. I at the time was in love with a Holy Cross graduate. We were together and actually started kind of talking about marriage and what the future would look like, because I had a job lined up for me in Rochester. I had worked there the previous summer, and they offered me a job in sales. So I was all set. They had a car waiting for me. I had a place to live, and so towards the end of May, I stayed in Boston and spent some time with my girlfriend, and as well, because all my my aunts and uncles, cousins, and friends were in the greater Boston area. We did a graduation party. Probably I think it was the 27th of May. So again, very uplifting to see all my my friends, my cousins, aunts and uncles, both sides of the family. It was a great party, and then I spent a few more days in Boston to say my goodbyes, and then I came home to Syracuse to see my parents. I think it was a Wednesday or a Tuesday, before starting work the following Monday. So it was a Wednesday, because the night I got home, my two best buddies that I grew up with, two guys that I had known since I was a little kid, when I moved to Syracuse, and we stayed tight all through my college years. They came up to visit me. They're like, "Okay, you're home. It's Wednesday night. We're going out to this place that we used to hang out at. It was called Phelan's, at up at the hill in Syracuse University." And it happened to be Wednesday night, which was, back then, it was ladies' night, and girls would get 2-for-1 drinks. So all the girls were there, all our friends from high school and people we knew in Syracuse. So basically, I'm like, "All right, guys." So they came over to my parents' house, and I got ready. And at the time, my dad had bought a couple-year-old used Oldsmobile Tornado, which was kind of like a big uh, sedan two-door car. It was one of those, like a Cadillac sedan DeVille. And like, "Come on, you got to take the nice car." So we went out and had a nice night, partied. Probably contributed to my drive home. So we left the club, probably at closing, after 2 o'clock, and I drove on the highway to get back to the west side where my parents lived. And I was driving. One buddy was in the front seat, the other guy was in the back seat. As I was speeding up off of the on ramp, onto the highway, I lost control of the car and crashed. And I ended up, I was in a coma. I don't remember anything that happened prior to that crash. So I kind of know what happened, because my friends pieced it together for me, because they were still conscious, and luckily nothing happened to them other than getting a little banged up. And I woke up, whatever it was, 8 hours later, in the ICU, and that's when I was conscious, and they told me what happened, and kind of started the whole journey into being spinal cord injured. I broke my cervical vertebrae, my fifth and sixth cervical vertebrae, so located kind of in the middle to the bottom of your neck, and caused paralysis, throughout my body. It's a quadriplegia, so all four limbs were affected. I have use of my arms, but I don't. I have limited triceps and limited chest muscles and so on. But I've it'll be 41 years this June 2nd, and
Wow.
so it's been a life of using a wheelchair for all aspects of mobility.
What was sort of when things started to settle down and you regained consciousness and knew the extent of everything that happened? What was your mindset of everything that happened, and how did you deal with, everything emotionally?
Well, it probably took, a day at the most, that I realized the seriousness of it. And, especially, my parents came in to see me, and, my brothers, I knew it was bad. But, at the time, I mean, honestly, I don't even think I knew what the word quadriplegic meant, or never heard about it before. And, you know, I thought, okay, this is temporary. This isn't going to be permanent. This is something I got to get through and work through, and things are going to be okay. It's not going to be as bad. I've always been blessed with a positive attitude, and I think I even had it then. But it was more about recovery. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be able to walk. This is temporarily. And you start thinking like, oh, I can feel my toe. Yeah, it's going to be okay. And as the days went on, I realized that it was serious, because now they had put my head in traction, um, after they stabilized me. And I remember I was on some pretty heavy duty pain medicine in the beginning. I think it was actually morphine, and they put me in this device called a striker frame, which they actually stopped using, shortly after, probably around 1984. And basically, you'd be strapped in bottom and the top, and what they did is they would flip you over every 6 hours, and it was so you wouldn't develop any type of skin sores, and help you breathe, make sure your body's. And plus they had tongs in my head for the weights to stabilize my neck and keep it secure. And then they decided to do a surgery, which was probably about 8 or 9 days after the accident, a fusion in the back of my neck. So that kind of started the whole process of, you know, was supposed to start the process of rehab. However, I had so many medical complications after that I basically couldn't start rehab. Just things that happened. I developed some blood clots and, some other medical complications. And at the time, I was made aware through my dad about Boston University had a spinal cord injury center, and they were basically covered the whole Northeast. So I was able to get transferred there, in early July, so about a month after my accident and a few weeks after my surgery. And my parents had to sign, the hospital didn't want me to leave, and they wouldn't provide transportation. So my parents had to hire an ambulance to transport me from Syracuse to Boston, which was a horrible trip for me. And when I got to Boston, they did a complete reeval and found out that I needed more surgery. So they did another fusion from the front of my neck. And it was probably not until the end of July that I started my rehab and had some relative medical stabilization. And so I spent the next 3 months, July, so August, September, and October, in the hospital in Boston, because I was discharged on Halloween, October 31st of '83. So, and during that time is when I realized that this is probably going to be permanent, and this is probably how I'm going to have to live my life. And it was a very difficult time for me, because I had great support from my family and my extended family, and guys that I played lacrosse with, guys that were my buddies that I played hockey with when I was a freshman at Holy Cross, and my, just my great support from my girlfriend at the time. So I was able, I wanted to stay positive for them, but also realizing that this is going to be a strange new world for me to navigate. And I will say that the rehab center, the hospital, did a great job. I mean, all they dealt with on this part of the hospital was a spinal cord injury. I think they had like 28 beds. And so there were guys that were, mobile and injured before me that, helped me and mentored me. it was a process where, you would do it when you were ready, you'd do a day trip somewhere. They would release you for the day to go, visit a relative, which meant, generally getting carried up steps and, just trying to navigate in the chair in somebody's house. Then there was a overnight stay. And, finally, when release came, they made sure that you had, the proper place to live, the proper accessibility. And I was fortunate to have, a community of people that, made all that possible for me.
Yeah.
So I felt that, I had a responsibility to try to, make a life and, be productive. I wanted to, still be a dad. I wanted to be a successful guy, and I wanted to be part of a community and have a social life. So that's kind of what I worked towards. And there were certainly times when I didn't feel good about myself, didn't feel good about my self image, didn't have the inner confidence, but that comes with maturity and comes with experience. And, it came with, the help of many other guys and gals that were injured before me that,
Yeah.
paved the path for me.
You spoke briefly about your father there, and I had saw that your father had overcame polio, went from being on the offensive line in high school to being starting quarterback, and then joined the Marines and became a boxer in the Marines when he served. So when I think of that, I'm like, man, this guy's a fighter
Yeah,
through and through in all senses of the
yeah,
word.
definitely. Yeah,
When
oh, sorry.
when thinking about your dad, how did that sort of that fighter mentality rub off onto you and sort of help you throughout your entire journey?
Yeah, our dad was a great leader, a great mentor. He lots of taught us with a lot of parables about life. And, I think that all myself and my two brothers, were all born with a fighter attitude and never quit. So yeah, definitely, my dad, had a huge influence on my upbringing and my value system, and my commitment to sports and being a good person. So that when I did have my accident, it was very difficult for my dad, to see his oldest son, who was this very active kid and young man that as the oldest son, he taught me that when he traveled that I was the man of the house. So I would help my mom, I would help clean, cook, take care of my younger brothers. So I was the oldest brother. That was part of what we did. And when I was injured, it was a really difficult time for him. He did everything he possibly could to support me, physically, mentally, and financially. But really, during that time of my rehab, my mom was kind of the person that kind of took the lead with me and was the person that I was able to communicate directly with, because it was kind of emotional for my dad and for me to converse about the difficult parts of what I was going through and the medical complications and so forth.
Yeah. So fast forwarding to your life today, saw that on your 50th birthday, you were surprised with a gift of a 501c3, which is now known as the Endless Highway Foundation.
Hmm.
Take me to that day on your 50th birthday. How special of a moment was that
Yeah.
for you?
So it was a surprise party in Boston, excuse me, in Rochester here, at my buddy's, very big successful restaurant. They closed the restaurant on a Saturday night for my party, and it was supposed to be a surprise, but somehow or another I found out about it and found out the size of the party. And at the time, I asked, my brother and my girlfriend, and you know, I said, I don't, please don't tell everybody no gifts. I don't want any gifts for me. I don't want to open up anything. Just have them make a donation to any charity, in my name if they want to do something. And then that started the whole idea of the foundation, because I've always, during my business career, I've been interviewed, with a couple newspapers or shows, and I've always talked about someday being able to start a foundation that would provide sports equipment and recreation for kids and young adults that use wheelchairs, because there's no funding source for that type of equipment, and it's expensive. I think I even said it when I got an award back when I was 35. It was part of this, 40 under 40, people in Rochester that, are going to make a difference. So that was in 95, I think, or 96. And I said that in the interview. And then, a few months later, the newspaper called and they wanted to feature an article about me and, being involved in business in the community. And I said it again then. And, here it is almost 30 years later. And, I'm kind of living my dream.
That's awesome to hear. What specific barriers did you want the Endless Highway Foundation to dismantle to make recreation more inclusive for people?
Well, when I got injured in 83, it was kind of, on the cusp of where, people with physical disabilities and disabilities in general were, starting to mainstream into society. They were always kind of isolated socially, academically, even culturally, to be honest. And I worked in Boston for 2 years after my accident for an individual named Charlie Carr, who is still with us. He was injured when he was young, in his teens, back in the 60s, and really a pioneer for disability rights and inclusion. Back then they didn't have the word. We never talked about inclusion or it was really about breaking down architectural barriers that prevented somebody with a mobility device to enter. And, also about like mainstreaming youth into school systems, as well as other, aspects of socialization. So as I lived my life, there was barriers that I had to overcome, both socially and certainly in business and work. And I always had the ability to advocate for myself, and I always put my goal and my mission ahead of my own personal, whether it was anxiety or nerves. And I would make the calls and say, hey, I'm Rob, I'd like to meet you. I'm in a wheelchair. Is there a place we can meet in the lobby? So it was always, always finding a way to make something work out. But as I got older and got more in the community here, more involved with disability, I realized that people didn't have the same resources that I had available. And I felt that, there was, there's getting emotional. Sorry, just gonna get my shit together here.
All good.
Um, Somebody once told me that to whom much is given, much is expected. So I kind of, I live by that. So
Going off that, I saw that you had a reading with the Long Island Medium
yeah,
3 years
that,
ago,
that
and
was pretty wild.
she passed along a message to you, and she said, your mother says to trust your gifts,
Hmm.
and you've done so much incredible work and have used your journey sort of as your gift. So my
Hmm.
question for you is, what do you think Rob Tortorella's gift is to the world?
Well, it's a pretty big question. Pretty big question, Tim. Um, so I think that I've tried to live a life with a value system that has always taught me to be, grateful and to be a positive person that has the ability to overcome obstacles. And I think my gift is that, I'm able to be empathetic to other people in general. I think that I have an ability, call it a gut, to kind of really get to know somebody. And, whether it's a youngster or a teenager or their parents or a fellow, you know, person that, has a disability that's an adult, and, find a way to really connect with them. And because I've developed, a great network and a great community here in Rochester, I've been able, as well as, as well as through my high school, college, and just business career, I have a great group of people that support what I do, every day financially. So that gives me an endless highway and the people that I work with, the ability to really make a difference in people's lives by filling in the voids, whether it's equipment, financially, whether it's advocacy, access to activities. And so, kind of a long-winded answer to your question, I guess my gift is that, I'm an empathetic person and I'm sensitive to people. And I just have a natural feeling that there's something I can do to to make their life better by being part of it. And not in a way that, like, I'm putting my values or my beliefs or my intentions, but really respond to what their needs are, and let them tell me so that I can meet their needs. My ego and my perspectives and my opinions are all put to the side because none of that really matters.
When did you have the first thought, after your accident and you started getting into your work with Endless Highway? When did you have the thought of sort of, this is what I was put on this earth to do?
Well, I mean, back during my business career, it was about, building my business, building relationships. My brother and I, that's been my business partner for, over 35 years. We our commitment was to the people that worked for us first. Obviously our families. So my goals were in the back of my mind that later in life, my 50s, I could really start to focus on this, this other kind of agenda that I had. And to be honest, when it was started in 2011, you know, I probably received, just under 40,000 in donations. And over the years from 11 to 18, I just put the money back out in the community in different ways. Wasn't active with it, raising money, or, I was still working full time. So it really wasn't until we grew the company and we're teeing the company up for a sale, we brought in a CEO, and I was able to start to spend some time with Endless Highway, and that was in 2018. Changed the name; it was the Robert A. Tortorella Charitable Trust. Changed it to Endless Highway, which kind of was a great phrase, kind of capturing partly who I am. That's a music term, and my buddies here in town that were in advertising donated their time to help build out my website, market, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, and after we sold the business in early 19, I just started spending more and more time with Endless Highway, and it's really developed into my full time gig now. It's what I do pretty much all day, and it's just a great way for me to, impact the people in the community here, and I get so much in return just through, notes and texts. And, you know we've I have a great team that really makes this happen. I mean, it's really just, it's almost like divine intervention has happened, because Carolee and Claire that I work with, they have the same mission that I have, and they're breaking down barriers daily too. So it's kind of a something that's just, it's been like a tumbleweed. It just grows and grows.
It must be a pretty special feeling that you're able to do work where you're able to help a lot of people, but it feels like the work is helping you just as much as well.
Def, Definitely, for sure. It Yeah, definitely, because I've met so many great families, so many great people, you know, guys that and gals that are gunshot survivors that have to start their lives, and from young kids. Youngest kid was 14. He was in a gang. He got shot and paralyzed quad, and now he's 17. He's in school. He's an honor roll. He is plays wheelchair rugby. He's got a girlfriend, and he's out doing things. And I met him probably 3 months after he was shot, and he's come so far on his own. And that's just one example to maybe another woman that was shot, victim of violence, with two children. And she has to start her life over, and still be a mom, and still take care of her kids and take care of herself. So there's always, like I always say, no matter how bad it is, it can always be worse. It could always be worse. And most most people that go through something traumatic, you have to kind of make a choice. Like, am I going to go on, or am I going to give up? It's pretty much that cut and dry. And most people want to go on, and do go on.
Rob, you're a testament to the fact of we define what we want to do with our life, and you sort of everything that happens to us, it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And like I said, you're a true testament to that, and you're a true outworker through and through. Where would people be able to find you and Endless Highway?
Great, thank you. So our website is endless-highway.org. So if they go there, it has my email, my number. It has our social media, which is Facebook, LinkedIn, and IG. And we keep things up to date on all the social media and our website. So yeah, if there's somebody out there that we can assist, or people have questions, just reach out directly to me.
Awesome. Well, Rob, I appreciate you coming on the Outworker.
Thank you. All the best, and give my love and respect to your entire family.
Sounds good, Rob. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, Tim.